Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method, because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own service who's ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure, pitching, or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, then go to Aleashabahr.com. Okay, so today's episode was inspired by a conversation with a good friend. And this good friend had an experience with a timeshare salesman. Now, I've never bought a timeshare. I don't even fully understand what it is. I think it's a bunch of people going in on owning a condo together, and they get 1 week a year to stay there or something. But they have to go only that 1 week. But I'm definitely familiar with the sales style of timeshares. So if you're not familiar, it usually comes with an attractive piece of bribery, a weekend getaway, or some other large prize for going to the presentation, because it is a presentation and it takes 3 hours. And it ends with somebody putting a lot of pressure on you to buy. I've even heard that they will insult somebody's masculinity and tell them that they're, not a good father or husband because they're not investing in vacations for their family and all kinds of crazy, gimmicky, douchey sales tactics. So, although I will say I am impressed by the endurance you have to have a 3-hour presentation sales conversation, and to do that like 5 times a day, that's really props, kudos. I don't know what kind of drugs it takes to do that, but I feel like it's not natural. This situation, she already owns the timeshare, but they said, oh, there's a meeting on updates for your timeshare that you need to go to. And that's why she went, right? And the updates were, the timeshare that you've bought is going to increase in price drastically. It's going to be worse service. It's going to be like $20,000 more a year. And we need you to buy this other thing that's going to be a better deal or whatever, right? And so the guy she's talking to, he's like super muscular. He's doing a pretty good job actually of making it seem like it's some kind of updates, giving her the bad news that her timeshare is apparently just going to shit. And then he talks about himself a lot, right? He talks about how he's like the top salesman there. There's nobody higher than him. He talks about how he has been approached by all these people that he's done this presentation with to sell for them, and that actually he didn't even want to take the job to sell what he was selling to her right there. But they offered it to him 3 times and offered to move him. So he did. And just really talking himself up about how he has a boat and a car and a camper and all of this stuff because he's so successful and amazing, right? Also weaves in a story about his grandma and how he helped her move during a really, important time of year for him, but she came first and she had this blender and has this whole story about a blender that he then calls back at the end of the sales conversation and says, and it's like this blender. This timeshare that I'm telling you about is like the blender in my grandma's story, which makes you think, oh my God, was that whole story fake? Probably, right? And he also shows her, look, you're a gold member, but I'll show you my account because I'm a platinum member, and shows her his account. And she's like, oh, okay, his name's Matthew, because I don't remember hearing his name and I'm really bad at remembering names. So I'm going to remember the account name is Matthew, right? And so at the end of this whole sales meeting, he's like, well, you'll be able to take advantage of all of these bonuses and yada, yada if you make a decision in the next 3 hours. And she's like, no. Apparently her dad has gone to them every year to get whatever the bribery is that they offer. And he's never said yes to their sales pitch, but he wasn't going this year. So he's like, can you please go for me? And she's like, I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but I'll ask my dad. And she had told him at the beginning, my dad isn't here. He's the one who would make the decision. It's his timeshare. And the guy proceeded anyway. So she goes and tells her dad, and her dad's like, no, absolutely not. He's trying to pressure you. Tell him the answer is absolutely not, right? And during their conversation, the sales guy had told her like, oh, you're so easy to talk to. I really like you. I don't offer this usually. I don't show people this usually, blah, blah, blah. She believed him. He was very good at what he did. It almost felt like, it feels like a layer of acting is involved for you to be that good. And then when she came back and told him that the answer was no, he acted like she was dead to him. He was like, why? And she was like, he just said absolutely not. And he was like, this is so frustrating. Whatever. And leaves, which completely ruined all of the rapport that he had built up for 3 hours. Like, what if she changed her mind? What if she came back next year? She will never believe anything that those timeshare salesmen say ever again. And whenever she came to talk to him, he was busy. And so she asked someone else, hey, is Matthew available? And he says, who's Matthew? She's like, that guy. He's like, that's not Matthew, that's Steven. So he lied and said that something was his account when it wasn't. And obviously he just lied about everything probably and talked about how amazing he was the whole time instead of talking about her and her life. And that is a cardinal sin in sales. In sales, you want to know the other person's story. What's important to them? What's their life like? And as impressive as his whole blender story was that he probably says, has done 100 times in his life and somehow managed to make it sound natural, he would have been better served by understanding the person across from him's life and tying it to some analogy in their life, right? That's real sales talent. It's customizing it to the person in front of you. And that only happens when you actually care about the person in front of you. So I bring up this whole story because it became so clear to me that the issue here with timeshare sales in general is that it's that dated, aggressive sales strategy because for so long it was just aggressive white men selling to other aggressive white men. So his whole strategy probably would have worked on some other meathead, self-proclaimed alpha status guy. They probably would have been like, wow, this guy's a boss. Like, listen to all this stuff that he's done and da-da-da. A woman does not like hearing somebody brag about themselves. It's just not what we like. We're like, this person won't shut up about themselves. Women ask each other questions. We relate. We commiserate. We don't one up. It's a big difference in between male and female communication, along with like men are always trying to fix it, where women just want to be heard, right? So that's one that causes all kinds of problems in marriages. So anyway, this guy, didn't account for the fact that she was a woman, probably didn't even have a clue that the same approach wouldn't work with her. And not to mention she's Colombian. So even if it was like a Latino man that had been implementing this strategy, it would have come off differently, right? And he would have done it a different way. He would have related to her a different way. And it just goes to show that an evolution in sales is so desperately needed because there is such a diversity of buyers and sellers and that is only going to increase. So if you're not an aggressive white guy, you're not going to feel comfortable implementing that sales strategy, and you're not going to want to buy from someone using that sales strategy. And then think about all of the genders and social backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and sexual orientations in between, right? All of those people respond a different way and want things presented to them in a certain way and feel more comfortable presenting them in a different way. And so ultimately, the timeless sales strategy is to actually care about the other person, ask questions, and know how to use empathy and curiosity to customize a conversation to the person across from you. That will timelessly work. Here's the other issue that it brought up for me is the only reason that you have to manipulate and lie and pressure and bribe and use all of these gimmicks is when your offer sucks. Why isn't there a single timeshare salesperson who can just keep it real with somebody who's buying from them and say, hey, these are the benefits based on your life. It sounds like it'd be a great fit. You'd be able to do this. You'd be able to do that. Does that make sense for you? It seems like it's a good fit to me. Is it a good fit for you? How does it feel? How come nobody in timeshare sales can do that? They have to have this performance that has all of these gimmicks in it. It makes me think that something's really wrong with timeshares. Like something's off with that product or service that they literally can't have a transparent, honest conversation with somebody. Like there's nobody who's a genuine good fit for this model. Sounds like something's flawed in the model. You know what I mean? So that is what is communicated to your prospect when you do all of these inauthentic, false, pressure, lying things. Is like, what's wrong with your offer? Like, what are you lying? What else are you lying about in your offer that I'm not going to like after I buy, right? So to sum it up, cultural differences, gender differences, all of these things make a difference in what you are going to be successful implementing and what you are going to feel comfortable buying. And those are very important to consider when creating a sales strategy for you. And never make somebody feel like they're your best friend only if they buy from you. Because, and honestly, this guy probably, after she bought from him, he still would have acted like she was dead to him because at that point she offered no value, right? She only, it was a very transactional relationship. You bought from me. I don't remember your name. I don't remember us talking. I don't care. And it's this kind of thinking that it's like P.T. Barnum's quote, "A sucker's born every day." So these people kind of feel like, it's not my fault you're a sucker. Like, I'll say whatever. Like, there's no lie that's too bold and there's no line that's too low to get the sale. And if you buy, that's on you for being a sucker. And that's sort of how they do the mental gymnastics around it. And it's also what gives sales such a bad name. And the thing is, if there was somebody in timeshare sales that would have a transparent, honest conversation, I bet they would crush it. When you hear about the top car salesmen, because there are a few, the top car salesmen were men who just actually gave a shit about the person buying the car. They would write holiday cards and notes and keep in touch with people. And that is how they did so well. And they never sold someone a bad deal. And that will always be true. And yes, there are some nuances to the sales conversation that are going to make it more likely to close, which is obviously what I will offer to support you in. The words that are going to do your offer justice. The softer skills like empathy and curiosity that need to become muscle memory for you in a sales conversation. Ability to reset a conversation when the person across from you is skeptical and burned and just doesn't trust you. A way to reconnect with them authentically so that you can move the conversation forward. Those are all things that I work with you on and are necessary for sales, but I promise you they are so much easier and more natural to do than this weird horse and pony show that people have created around sales. And it's because that type of sales only works for one type of person. And I'm guessing nobody listening to this podcast is that type of person because I'm never talking about that type of advice because it's just not necessary. And you'll also just sell less when you sell like that. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you in explaining why those things might feel off to you when they happen or might feel off to you when you're delivering them. And I hope you feel confident that you don't need to buy from that person and you don't need to sell like that person, and you will sell more when you don't. And if somebody can tell me if there's anything good about timeshares, I would love to know, because if that's the way they sell it, it's got to just be a big fat scam that's somehow made legal. And I'm like totally turned off for life. So learn from this story. Share it with your friends, review it so people know that they are going to be more successful, especially in the world that we are moving into when they get away from these dated strategies. It is 2024, okay? We don't need to sell like it's 1980 anymore. And the fact that that sales strategy just won't die is mind-boggling to me, because it's time. It's time to retire it, and it's time to just show up for people of all types. If you want to talk about psychological tricks, you're going to talk to a woman differently than you're going to talk to a man. And if you're not, you need to adjust. So anyway, thank you all so much for listening. And until next time.